Hello YouTube friends. Today we are doing our third alternate live series where we're going to be making vegan Red Lobster Cheddar Bay biscuits. I don't know about you guys, but a lot of my family, my mom especially, are huge fans of Red Lobster, and one of the main things that we look forward to if we go, or when we went, I guess I should use past tense because it's been a long time since I've been, are their biscuits that they give complimentary with anything that you order. Granted, in retrospect, it's a little bit weird because I can eat like one thing off of their menu now that I have my allergy diagnosis, so it's not exactly a staple thing that I usually get, but I think these biscuits are fantastic and I'd like to replicate them in a way where I could eat them. Plus, gluten-free versions already exist. In fact, they actually sell a mix for the Red Lobster Cheddar Bay biscuits on the market. I know I've seen them at Smith/Kroger, I should say, and I think I've seen them at Walmart too. So if that's up your alley, that's something you can check out, and I've heard great reviews on that. But anyway, without further ado, we're going to jump in and start making these. So our first step is actually we're just going to melt a half cup of butter. And I'm actually using this Country Crock plant butter for the first time. I think I've actually had it with my mom like when it first came out onto the market, but I don't remember it very well, and we've been consistently using this different margarine, but I am wanting to just shake things up a bit. The margarine that we have been using is not inaccessible, but it's less easy to come by because the store that we were getting it from is like not that close to where we live. So it was a challenge to actually get butter, and actually, like, I don't know, whenever we run out, it's always a pain to have to go that far to buy some more. So I'm just going to pop this in the microwave for 30 seconds, making sure that it's melted thoroughly, and we'll be good. Now my fingers feel all buttery, lightly greased. Oh yeah. The next thing though that we'll be doing is combining a cup of an unsweetened plant milk with a tablespoon of our apple cider vinegar. And anytime that I'm using apple cider vinegar in a recipe, I use, just gonna grab the butter for a second. That smells good. I feel like that smells better than our usual alternative. But whenever I use apple cider vinegar in a recipe, I like to just make sure that the mother, which is what gathers at the bottom, is thoroughly mixed into your apple cider vinegar. And that's in part to get a more balanced flavor, but also just so that when you don't, like when you get to the bottom of your apple cider vinegar, you don't have clumps of that with the mother and you're like, what do I do with this? So let's see. Okay, I should have gotten that, I guess, but we'll just combine, like I said, a cup of an unsweetened plant-based milk into a separate bowl, not with the butter. And then we'll add a tablespoon, not a teaspoon, of the apple cider vinegar to the milk. And this is really just to make basically like a vegan version of buttermilk. And the apple cider vinegar, of course, helps give that like soury taste to the buttermilk. And then once that's combined, we'll actually just let that sit. And I'm going to let our melted butter also just sort of sit off to the side while we add our dry ingredients. So for our dry ingredients, when we were actually making the not mock version, but our first test version of this, I decided to use whole wheat and all-purpose flour just in a mixture because I felt like all-purpose flour would make it a little less hearty than I sort of remembered them being. But that's totally by my preference. If you want to do 2 cups of all-purpose flour, that is more than okay. I'm just going to be combining a cup of whole wheat flour with all-purpose flour. And as always, if you have questions as we go, especially if you're making this with me, go ahead and throw it in the chat. That way I can address it as we're going and you're not feeling lost. And I'm actually just going to grab a fork to mix all of the dry ingredients before we add our wet ingredients. And then we'll need 5 teaspoons of baking powder. Which sounds like quite a bit, but essentially it takes the place of yeast in this bread, so it helps give it some rise, makes them a bit fluffier. Wonderful. So once we've got the 5 teaspoons of baking powder, we can add 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. And if you've been doing these with us, this recipe goes by much faster than any of the others that we've done so far. This is actually a very, very quick recipe to make. So if you're trying to find a way to beef up your dinners and make a nice side dish, this is a really easy thing to actually add. And then we'll just be adding 2 1/4 teaspoons of garlic powder. I feel like the garlic in these is a very nostalgic taste for me. I feel like it's very, very important not to skimp on the garlic powder for Old Bay biscuits, or cheddar Bay biscuits, sorry. The seasoning is Old Bay seasoning, so I totally just like mixed those two in my head for a second there. And speaking of, that's actually our next ingredient. This is sort of the magic ingredient that really makes it taste like Cheddar Bay biscuits. And I mean, aside from the cheddar, I should say, but you'll just add a 4th teaspoon of this actually, which really isn't that much, but I was just feeling like the original recipe had a little too much in it, and this definitely, like, especially if your Old Bay seasoning is fresh like ours is, I am cutting it down because I don't want it to overpower all of the other ingredients. And in our first version, I felt like I really wasn't getting too much of the cheddary taste, and that of course is really important for Cheddar Bay biscuits. So all right, and once you've given that dry mixture a good stir, we're actually going to add our cheddar at this point. So I'm gonna go grab that from the fridge. And I will be using Daya's cheddar style shreds. And it's not necessarily because they're my favorite. Sorry, we just had a light go out. But mainly because it's actually just what we have available to us. And the recipe calls for 6 ounces, which also could be like a cup and a half. So I'm gonna go based on the cup and a half to add. And I feel like if in doubt, be generous with this part because they're Cheddar Bay biscuits. Oof. Yeah, sorry about the lighting. Our battery went out, so this is just what we're going to be dealing with, I guess, for at least a bit. And then you can just give that a stir, make sure that the cheddar is thoroughly covered with the flour mixture. Then at this point, we're going to go back to what we started with our apple cider vinegar, milk, and our butter. And we're actually going to add the butter to the buttermilk. Honestly, in these steps, I'm just sort of honoring the wisdom of the blogger whose recipe we're borrowing this from. So Make It Dairy Free chooses to use this method. And I think, like, I have my theories on why, although she does actually have them chill in the fridge before adding them together, but I had just pulled the milk and everything from the fridge, so it was still very thoroughly cold. But I'm wondering if, because of the lower melting point of the plant butter, if this is actually to partially solidify it again to give the biscuits just a little more nuanced texture, where the butter is kind of like in the turnover video, forming some like pockets, which gives overall the biscuits a little bit more flakiness and yeah, not just like to bite into butter by any means, but to incorporate it a little more smoothly, where you've got some pockets formed with like the air that is formed from evaporation, or and some parts where it is mixed thoroughly. This butter is definitely acting a lot different than what we used for our first trial, so we'll see if it actually affects that texture or not. At any rate, at this point you can just add it to your dry mixture. Probably should have removed my fork. Don't repeat that mistake if you're following after me. And then you'll take a spatula and mix together. And this, kind of like a muffin mix or a traditional biscuit mix, you want to mix until everything is wet, but not over incorporate it, especially if you are doing these not with gluten-free all-purpose flour. If you're making them gluten-free, by all means, stir to your heart's content. That's like a golden rule of making things gluten-free. But if you are using wheat-based flours like I am here, just avoid the mistake of overmixing.
We apparently might not have as many people hop onto this stream as on the other ones because Olympics, women's gymnastic team finals are on right now.
Oh my gosh.
Apparently. So, yeah, we're competing for airtime with them.
Yeah, that was poorly planned. Gosh. Yeah, I mean, if I could, I would probably be watching that instead. Oh, that sounds bad. But, I mean, we'll be able to maybe hop on and we'll have this delicious, like, biscuit to treat ourselves to at the same time. So this is a good amount of mixing. At this point, I'm going to turn the oven on to 450 degrees Fahrenheit, so we can have that preheating while we're actually forming the biscuits. Yeah. Yeah, something about being pregnant and tired all the time has made me very out of touch with the world. So, sorry. I don't expect us to actually compete with women's gymnastics, because that's way cooler. But this is at least out there for anyone who wants to watch on replay. These are really fantastic biscuits, and honestly, they already smell so good. I'm really excited for how they're gonna turn out. So at this point, I'm actually going to use an ice cream scoop to form like really well, like same size balls. If that, I feel like there's probably a better way to say that. I'm just gonna grease it real fast with one of our butter wrappers that we already used, and then I've already got my pans over here to the side with our silicone mats, so I'm just gonna scoop, and you don't have to be too crazy about making sure that they're like perfect circles or anything. You can think of them more like drop cookies. These are like drop biscuits. And of course, when the dough gets stuck in the ice cream scoop like that, I just scoop it out with my finger for simplicity. Yeah. Just want to give a quick shout out to the blog Make It Dairy Free where we got this from. I know I'm tweaking the original recipe, but I am overall just very impressed with their blog. So if you are dairy free and that's not a resource you've ever used, I definitely recommend checking them out because she's got tons of recipes on there that look amazing. So I may even be using them in the future for some inspiration. But it seems like a great place to go if you are needing dairy-free recipes. That was a very big one on the end. Oof. Yeah, the other funny thing about this recipe is that the original says it makes 9. And I don't know if you're seeing this and how much I'm actually scooping out, but it makes a lot, or at least in my experience, it makes a lot. She may be using a larger ice cream scoop than I am, but I think these are really well sized. And let's see, we've got like 15 so far. So we're probably gonna end up with 16. This might even be a little small, but still, it's kind of a lot of biscuit. Okay. Yeah, just to beef that one up a bit, gonna add any extra I can. But yeah, so we've got 16 biscuits here, which I guess isn't like too crazy more than 9, but it's also like almost double, which I think is awesome. Err on the side of caution, right? So we've got a lot of biscuits here, and that's great. So now, of course, I'm waiting for our oven to be fully preheated. But just to explain as well, we are kind of guessing here and how long they're going to bake. Last time we had tried the lower end of what she recommended on her blog, which was 12 minutes, and that really didn't do it for us, and I kind of lost track of how many times we needed to like reset our timer on the oven. So I'm not exactly sure, but I'm guessing it'll be about 20 minutes on 450. So we'll see, and we'll check them at that point and see where that takes us. But luckily, in the meantime, we've got a topping that we can make and will be making to go on top of these. Because if you're familiar with Cheddar Bay biscuits, they have like green specks on them, and these clearly do not yet. So that will actually get added after they're out of the oven. And you'll see what I mean. In the meantime, I'm going to wash my hands. If you're making this along with me, this is also a great opportunity for you to wash your hands, clean up anything that you need to. Yeah, that doesn't look at all like the butter that we've used in the past. But I'm going to be reusing what we melted our butter in to make that topping that is going to end up going on top of our biscuits when they come out. So just to start with, if you've got a full stick of butter, you'll just be cutting it in half, because we'll be using 4 tablespoons or a 1/4 cup. And of course, the first step with that again is to melt it. Actually, beautiful. I also kind of like, sorry, just as an aside, I like that this butter isn't overly yellow like the margarine we've been using. Sometimes that is just like crazy yellow, which makes me feel slightly uncomfortable. And I like that this one's kind of just an off-white. I don't know if that's just me, but I'm liking my experience using it so far, so hopefully I'll also like the taste of it, but I guess we'll get to see that when these babies come out. At this point, our oven is coming very close, so I'm going to go ahead and pop them into the oven. And like I said, we're going to be checking them at 20 minutes. I have no idea if they'll be ready at that point or not. But also part of the reason why I feel comfortable popping them in early is because we really just need to bake until they're golden brown. And it's not an exact, it's not an exact science per se. I kind of wing it a lot when I make food, which makes it more enjoyable to me, if I'm gonna be honest. So, and that's a big part of making food, is it should be enjoyable to make and to eat. So I'm just rolling with that. So at this point, I'm just going to melt this butter like we did before, so that we can actually start, so that we can actually start with the topping. Wonderful. And if you've got a plant-based butter that sets more quickly or solidifies more quickly, by all means you can wait longer to melt it. I had just noticed that before, when we did our melted butter, it really wasn't re-solidifying at all yet. So I think we're good to go. And I'm going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of dried parsley leaves. And that's where the green specks come from, if you're familiar with these. There we go. Now our oven's fully preheated. I feel like that's fairly good timing. And back to our garlic powder, we're going to be using another half teaspoon. I shouldn't have recapped it. Ah. Ow. Well, for your entertainment, watch me struggle with the garlic powder. Yeah, I know food memory is not necessarily the most reliable thing to go off of when you're making food, but at least in my memories, the clearest flavor to me growing up was this sort of garlicky butter flavor. Like they had almost like lived together before they became part of the biscuit, and that was just like, I don't know, the most important thing to me, I guess, eating these as a kid. So we're just gonna give that a quick stir to incorporate it well so that our garlic and butter can live together before we add them to the biscuit. And that should help the garlicky flavor also combine with the buttery flavor just a little bit. And especially because the butter's warm, that should enhance that process too. But aside from that, our topping is ready to go. Like I said, super easy. And all we'll need to do at this point is getting our biscuits out, and basically we'll use a basting brush to put the topping on our biscuits, and then we'll just need to let them cool, and then they are good to go. So like I said before, a really, really easy addition to bulk up a dinner or as a lovely side, but overall super simple at the same time, which is just great. So if you have been able to join us here live today, I'd love it if you would give us a shout out on the, oh my gosh, I keep hiccuping in this sentence, sorry. I would love it if you gave us a shout out though, so we know that you're there, and if you have any questions at this point, it's a perfect time for me to answer them about your baking needs or about this recipe. And basically, I'll just leave the floor to you for the next bit if you have anything you want to say to us while our biscuits are baking.
I must have the wrong chat pulled up then. Or, I mean, I must have pulled up the wrong chat for you. Because there are a few comments in the chat, actually.
Oh, well. Okay, I haven't been able to see your chats up to this point. Sorry about that, but we're gonna fix it. And I'll be able to answer you guys in just a minute. So thank you for actually putting things in the chat already. I just wasn't seeing them. And that's on me. Yeah, it is a lot, Alita.
A lot of what?
So I'm assuming a lot of biscuits. If that's not what you meant, sorry, but that's what I'm taking it as. Yes. And I'm also guessing that means you're going back and forth between women's gymnastics and this. I am flattered that I live in that realm for you. I honestly, yeah, that was an oversight that I shouldn't have made, but I did because I was just like, well, every other week and Tuesday works. My thought process really did not go very far. So thank you for being here. honestly, yes, it sounds like a fantastic Olympic food. So, yeah, I can't blame you for wanting them. Plus, I did make them sugar free in case you didn't notice. So, that should be also a great treat for you um, while you're sugar free. And yeah, just to explain a modification because of that, I think also the lack of sugar in this recipe may have been part of what made the Old Bay spice seem a little off balance using the full half teaspoon that it called for. Pretty sure it called for a half teaspoon, which is why I dropped that to half because it was just a little overwhelming, honestly, at least to me, without some sweetness to balance it, because it is just a super savory spice. So I think that sweetness was there to balance it a bit. But I don't think the sugar by any means makes or breaks this recipe. And it wasn't really worth adding another sweetener either because it's not, I don't know, it's not a sweet food. So yeah, we're good. Anyway. Yeah, that's a great question, Marin. So the parsley, yeah, honestly, I feel like the parsley really is just for the aesthetic in this particular dish. Parsley, of course, has its own flavor, and in other things, like, yeah, it's definitely for flavor. But because we're just adding a fourth teaspoon and brushing it onto the biscuits, you really don't pick up on the flavor at all in it, but it makes them look really pretty. So I think it really is just for that. Nice. Oh, yeah, we'll have to catch up on the women's Olympics. Sorry, the women's gymnastics. That's a mouthful. Ugh. The women's Olympic gymnastic competition. That's, yeah, that's a lot to say. But we will have to catch up on it later because honestly, that has been my favorite event to watch for as long as I can remember. Of course, if we're talking Winter Olympics, it was always figure skating. I'm such a girl, but I think it's awesome. So props to you for being able to watch it. And thank you again for doubling up and watching us too. Thanks, Alita. We, yeah, are not. I mean, I guess if there were a YouTube Olympic community, I would like to compete, but I can't say that I feel that way most of the time, but thanks. Sweet. And we've got about 8 minutes before we'll be checking our biscuits. So, yeah, like I said, this is a super fast recipe. Sweet. Yeah, like I said, I've been really out of touch with like what's happening in the world. That's horrible, and I know it is, but most days I just want to sleep. It's like I do my math homework and then I want to sleep. I've really had to ration my energy, so I am giving myself that grace for not really being aware of things. But yeah, I've just been mainly reading updates on the Olympics, honestly, which is a lot more sad than watching them. But I will definitely be watching the gymnastics events in the future.
if you've got nothing to say, I guess. May as well hiccup at the camera.
Can they hear you? Or do I need to reiterate what you say?
I'm pretty sure they can hear me.
Okay. Beautiful. Yeah, I mean, it is like kind of my awkward filler. I feel like I don't say too many or uhs or whatever. So my body decided to compensate, and it's like, let's make her hiccup. Just kidding. Okay, but also as an aside, for those who are watching, I don't think I told you this, but when we went into our anatomy ultrasound, pretty sure we saw the baby hiccup. And by pretty sure, I mean I'd bet on it. And it was beautiful because it wasn't a series of hiccups like normal people. It was like a Kathryn hiccup where it was a one and done. And now I'm really hoping that the baby has inherited my my hiccups, especially since it seems to be genetic in at least some sort of way since my brother does it, but we'll see. In the meantime, I'm gonna grab our cooling rack because I realized I forgot to do that. Oof. One of these days I'll be able to assemble it from any angle without it being without it being difficult. Yes, thank you, Alita. I I do really hope that it is genetic. But yeah, I thought I forgot to tell you guys that because I mean, it's the anatomy ultrasound, so there's a lot else going on too, like finding out she's a girl. For 100% sure, not just Kathryn Hunch, she's pretty sure. Yeah. I also, not as a plug or anything, but I really like this cooling rack. I hadn't known that stacking cooling racks were a thing until my brother and now sister-in-law got married, aka Nathaniel and Olivia. And yeah, I saw one in Walmart and was like, oh my gosh, I have to get that for them because it's so cool. And pretty much anything collapsible that you can store in collapsed form, but is also just a really helpful item, is very exciting to me because I like having things neat and tidy, and when they condense, it's a lot easier to have them be neat and tidy when they're packed away. I'm gonna peek at them because we've got 2 minutes left, which means we're officially at the other end of what the blogger suggests baking them for. So I'm just curious to see. Whew. Glasses problems. But they are not ready yet.
You sure you were able to see?
I saw them for a split second, and then I saw nothing but a white haze.
I'm pretty sure you could actually see that on camera. So
Beautiful. Yeah, the glasses life. It's funny though, because I mean, I bake a lot. So there are some things where like I know to not look for a second and to let the moisture pass me before I actually like straight on look with my glasses. But I'm not used to these, and apparently they're super high moisture. So that was in my face. Big time. But yeah, a lot of other foods it's not really a problem. I guess it just depends on the moisture content.
there she goes again.
I'm actually oh. I honestly feel like they could use another 5 minutes.
Wow.
I'm gonna give them another 5 minutes and see what we're dealing with there, but they definitely are not golden brown yet, and they still seem a little too moist. So
Yeah.
we'll see where that takes us. But I'm actually really excited to paint the topping on them because it feels like you're painting and not, I don't know, it's just a different technique, I guess, than I usually use in the kitchen. Although I feel like this can also justify why this was like the one thing that I had of all of those necessities.
And now we wait.
And now we wait. What is that from?
I don't know. I'm
Oh.
sure a lot of things.
No, but there's that's iconic from something.
Well, if anybody watching knows, let us know.
Oh man. Okay, I know obviously a lot of things say and now we wait. But there's one where like the other character repeats it. What is that? Oh my gosh, that's totally in Harry Potter.
Which one?
That's in Prisoner of Azkaban, the third one, where they've gone back at that point, and
Back
they're
in time.
yeah, and so they're waiting to like, because they've gone in. I'm pretty sure. Well, this is okay. This is my logic. They've gone in to the shrieking. They've gone into the shrieking. I can't.
Shrieking Shack.
I can't. Why is that such a tongue twister for me? Shrieking shack. And so they're just needing to wait for their selves to come out before they can actually do anything useful. And so they're just like sitting and waiting in the woods. and they both, like, I forget who says it first. I think Harry says it first, maybe, and then Hermione repeats it. I mean, it's one of those ways, but pretty sure that's where it's at.
Honestly, I don't remember that moment, but
I don't know. When you said that, it just like resonated with me, and I'm like, where is this from? I need to know.
yeah. Unfortunately, Marin hasn't responded to our questions, so we can't confirm or deny.
Yeah, Marin. Fact checked me. Fact check me. Not. I'm tired.
Can confirm she took a nap today.
That's true. And I didn't yesterday for the first time in quite a while. But I also woke up early from my nap today because I was freaking out about sleeping too long to wake up for this. Which I did wake up at like 5:15, so I did have limited time to prepare. Not that that was a big deal, because I mean, you guys saw this recipe. It's not that horrible.
Nope. In fact, I'm the one who did it for our trial run this time.
Facts. Preston did our trial run, and I just sort of was there. What was I doing? I think I was making something else.
You were making something else, but for part of the time you were researching how to make something completely different.
That moment where you forget that your glasses falling to the last time in a major way. And then it happens again, and that's on you 100%. I'm just going to leave them in for another 2 minutes and see where that leaves us. Do you want to come onto camera? While I...
Suppose I could.
Oh, I totally... Yeah, there we go. And if you need to take them out, that would be great.
Sounds good. So, Marin, what we were wanting you to fact check was a moment ago, or a couple of minutes ago, I had said, and now we wait. And Kathryn was wondering what that came from, and then she remembered that it comes from Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. But I don't actually remember that moment, so we're just kind of needing a fact check on that. And it looks like the chat on Kathryn's device has not updated, so I need to refresh that. Okay. Cool, I think it's refreshed now, so Marin, do your fact checking magic. Darn, I was going to go through and answer any questions related to food science in a non-food science way because I thought it would be funny. But there's only the one about parsley actually used for flavor. And, yeah. Marin, you're not supposed to be fact-checking my hair. You're supposed to be fact-checking our Harry Potter references.
12. No, I didn't even look. And my glasses still got fogged up. That's just rude. Oh, sweet. They look great now. So that was what? A total of 27 minutes?
I believe so, 27 minutes.
Okay.
So the recipe was way off on 2 counts, on the number of biscuits and on the time needed to bake them.
Thank you, Preston.
You're welcome.
I'm actually going to leave those ones there for now while we get to paint our first set of biscuits. So this is, of course, something we want to do while they're still warm, which helps this mixture spread evenly across all of them as like the butter trickles down and everything. Granted, because the butter is melted, like, I don't know. It's just more effective when the biscuits are hot though. This is probably the most fun part in my opinion. Because it legitimately just gets to feel like you are painting on them. And if you're like me, it's like, ooh, how many parsley specks are we gonna get on here? And it's just fun.
Unfortunately, it looks like that's not actually in view of the camera.
Oh no. Okay. Where can I put it?
If you move it towards me,
Okay.
about 6 inches.
Is that good?
Now we can see about half of them.
Is that good?
Yeah.
Now I feel like I need a stool to paint these. Oh.
Okay. So according to Marion, you were right about the now we wait.
Yes!
Even the moment you were talking about.
Beautiful.
So.
My cinematic trivia for the win. Bonus for Marin. Does she know who says it first? Yes. Okay, that is exactly what I said, or kind of. I tried to say. I can't say Shrieking Shack, apparently, without much difficulty. But it's what I was going for. And hopefully I'm brushing these evenly on this side. I can't really see what I'm doing anymore. But the idea is to get all this garlicky, buttery flavor spread evenly throughout the biscuits. And as long as you do that, you'll be good and they will be very enjoyable. There we go. And now I'm just going to move these down so that we can finish painting all of our biscuits.
Alright, so Marion said, Hermione says it, and then Harry does that sibling thing where you just repeat what your smarter sibling said as if you thought of it first, and they hadn't said it at all.
Oh my gosh. That is a beautiful way of thinking of it. Oh my gosh.
So, Marin wins alternate live Harry Potter trivia night.
Yeah, the addition we didn't know we were doing. Beautiful. And as soon as you've painted all of them, they're done. Granted, I feel like I've got a lot of parsley leaves at the bottom of my mixture, and I kind of want to repaint some of them so that they get some parsley specks on them, but that is just me. But they are finished. So thank you again for tuning in. Yeah, looks like there's nothing new in the chat to address, at least that I can see. So thank you for coming. I hope you enjoy these delicious biscuits and maybe use them as an Olympics treat. They are wonderful. So we'll see you next time.